Hello, Vegas folk. How you doing? Hope everything's going good. So let's see. So late last year, OpenAI, and that's the for-profit open in name only artificial intelligence lab. I think Microsoft's about to buy them. Anyway, they launched a public prototype of their new GPT-3 powered chatbot called ChatGPT, and it's taken the world by storm. It's changed everything. The basic idea itself is not a new one. Chatbots have existed before, but they've never been on this level, and this one is above and beyond anything the public has been exposed to before. This new model can be conversed with in a completely natural conversational manner. You don't have to have any kind of special syntax or any kind of, I gotta word it this way or it won't understand me. No, man, you just go in there guns blazing, use any of your local idioms, it freaking knows. The other great thing is that it remembers the context of everything. It also has a really, really good level of understanding of what's asked of it. I mean, you can get really complicated. It'll follow you. It'll follow the conversation, and it has a massive depth of knowledge to draw from. We'll get to that in a minute. What is GPT? It is a generative pre-trained transformer. ChatGPT is a fine-tuned version of the third generation of it, GPT-3 specifically. And the actual details of how that works, way beyond the scope of this talk. And not at all because it's a bloody mysterious box beyond my current understanding. But, it's trained on massive corpuses of publicly available data, including one I've never heard of this one until recently, Common Crawl and Wikipedia. And Common Crawl is like, it literally crawls the internet, pulls down just the text. The model, like I said, this is GPT-3. The original GPT from 2018 had 117 million parameters. And then GPT-2, which saw a lot of use, grew to 1.5 billion parameters. And the one that ChatGPT uses has 175 billion parameters. And what is a parameter? It's technical, but it tends to correlate to the complexity of the data set. So this is our strange new world. ChatGPT, using it can be a very surreal experience, especially your first time through. You may kind of restrict yourself thinking, oh, it's just a computer, like that. But once you start to take the training wheels off, man, you get weird with it. It gets weird back, and that's great. So, you can use it for mundane things. You can write a long or short article on any given topic. Just say, hey, write me a story. You can specify this tone of the voice of the writing, or have it written in the style of a particular author. Like, for example, write 2 paragraphs about potatoes in the comedic style of Douglas Adams. It will do it. And it feels like Douglas Adams. It's not nearly as funny because, again, it's a computer. It's just drawing from existing data sources to try to pull it together. But the fact that it can even get there in the neighborhood of this and be convincing is, again, game changer. But it's also good for creative exploration. For instance, I made one of my early experiments with ChatGPT was to have it hallucinate an entire movie franchise. I had it say something like, I forget what it was. I have it written down somewhere. It was essentially, it's Star Wars, but it's with Dune. It had Luke Skywalker and Obi-Wan and all that shit. So not only did it create the movie, episode 4 of this franchise, but it created the entire trilogy of trilogies. So it had 9 films, each of them with titles, and I had it imagine how much each film made, how much did it gross at the box office, and how much it cost to make. And it created a short synopsis for each movie. It gave a movie review from Roger Ebert. And it even went so far, and this is where I stopped because my head exploded. I asked it for what topics are being argued about in the movie's subreddit. Anyway, so that actually happened, and if you ask me about it later, maybe I'll see if I can dig it up, because it's again, surreal as hell. Another thing you can do, generate interactive freeform text adventures. Imagine Infocom games, but where it's not scripted. Think about D&D night, man. Fucking insane. Anyway, you can simulate conversations with historical figures, letting you talk to Albert Einstein or Snoop Dogg or whatever. And it can do way more than they originally intended. I mean, people were really pushing this. One guy found a way to make it actually simulate a fully navigable bash prompt. You could go into the proc directory. You can go in and look in your. I made it have Captain Picard's daily log in his user directory with a PDF, and I've had it simulate a computer terminal that manages a bar in an 1800s Old West saloon with I actually made it have an ASCII art on login, and it had like users that were logged in and like the bar owner and all this shit. Crazy. I can't even believe I'm saying these things, but it's true. They've had it generating code. And this is where this is going to leap over into the other topic. They've been able to generate code for malware. And one guy, he's got a YouTube video where he has it generate a cheat from Minecraft to allow him to float through a server without, without cheats enabled on the server. This is just the beginning. And this is what people have been able to do. It's like the foundations of holodeck programming. Create a Sherlock Holmes story that Data can't solve, that kind of shit. I thought that would have been the hardest part of holodecks. But apparently, match this up with a VR headset and some of the AI art generation tools. Dude, 10 years from now, it's going to be insane. Naturally, it'll turn malicious and unscrupulous. Because of course it will. Stack Overflow has a ban currently on ChatGPT generated responses because people were making responses that were so good that they'd get upvoted because they were just so consistently correct and right and stuff like that. Maybe right. Teachers have been completely blindsided by ChatGPT. People are just made, pulling essays out of the air. And then even more insidiously, versions of this could be easily used to power completely automated, believable, interactive trolls or nation-state disinformation campaigns on social media. This ain't good, folks, and there's no way around it. There's no way. We have to deal with it one way or the other. We're just gonna have to, learn. And even if OpenAI were to withdraw the tool, there's already free open versions of it being worked on. And they're not on the scale of 175 billion parameters, but they're up there. So there's no going back. Humanity will have to learn how to deal with it. And I think it's a true pivot point in history, in my opinion. Honestly, I think it's like the atom bomb or the McRib. So it's important to understand the limitations. It's a reflection of ourselves. It has no, consider the sources. It's using publicly available scraped text off the internet. Its verbose and well-written answers are easily confused with competence and authority, and especially by people who, like grandma, she's going to look at this and go, "Oh, of course, it's perfect." It is often correct, but it's just as likely to completely fabricate lies, and there's no real way to tell without verifying it. And it's also got the biases and inaccuracies in the data it's trained on. Anyway, speaking of which, GPT-3 has no concept of ethics. It will happily list a couple dozen positive things about fascism in Nazi Germany, for instance. It doesn't care, and that gets into a whole area that's opening up. Who imposes those ethics? So, okay, fine, you can try to bias it against certain areas. But what if I don't agree with that person's, that person's ethics? Like if a conservative AI researcher biases the data with anti-abortion ideology. And likewise, maybe there's stuff that I believe in that somebody else is not on board with. Fuck them. Anyway. So fortunately for us in this talk, it's generally a lot better with programming topics. So that brings us around to Copilot. Copilot is in mid-2021, so this is before ChatGPT came out. GitHub released a technical preview of an AI-assisted programming tool for VS Code, and it's built on GPT-3, just like ChatGPT is. So it's not conversational in nature, it's trained for this particular use. And it's not just limited to VS Code, just plugins for JetBrains and NeoVim. Bunch of other stuff. You can call it IntelliSense on steroids, but weird, unstable genius from Mars watching you code while you're alone? Maybe that's a better description. Still creepy. So what can it do? there's different ways of interrogating the Copilot AI. Like with ChatGPT, you just ask questions in a conversational manner. With Copilot, the ways we're going to focus on here is just putting it in comments. I say, accept argparse arguments of a file path along with a width and height. And it might offer back something like this. It pulled everything in. I don't know why it's pulling in the pill here. Yeah, there you go. There's some of the flakiness, it's like it didn't need that. But this is absolutely correct. This sets up an argument parser and it does the full thing. Another example, it's not just Python. I mean, this is like if I was working in C and I wanted to write an emulator for the CHIP8 interpreter, if I say, give me an enum of self-documenting opcodes for the CHIP8, here you go. Now I went and verified this because that's one of the things is that it'll be very confident, but trust but verify. That's the name of the game here. And in this case, it is absolutely correct. And there's another example, like in Flask, I've asked for a Flask API that serves two endpoints, one that serves a random quote, and another to serve a random number between a maximum and a minimum. If this works, out of the box, this worked. Now, the reason why I asked for multiple endpoints here, doing wildly different things, is because you may say to yourself, well, it's pulling it from their entire corpus of source code. Who's got this? Who's doing this? Who's serving a quote and serving a random number in the same piece of code? Maybe somebody, but certainly me now, because here you go. Anyway, so that works. Now, what if I said, I want to do it in Node. I want to do it in Express instead. Just as easy. And this too works out of the box. So what am I hiding? And I wrote this as a 10-minute presentation, but clearly I have no concept of time. So here's some of the things I didn't get to. Copilot can also analyze a block of code and tell you what it does. It can add comments to your code, can identify and fix minor bugs. And if you pump code into ChatGPT, it can go even further. It's actually really good. It can analyze diffs and suggest a good commit message. Translate code between languages, as we just saw. We just went between Flask and Python and Node and with Express. But this has the thing where you can just actually highlight the code and push the button. A lot of these extra things are kind of like work in progress kind of things, but so in fact these are in a separate extension called Copilot Labs. So yeah, programmer beware. Much like ChatGPT, Copilot is very often correct. The suggestions are not bulletproof, and it really needs an expert hand to be a fully effective tool in your arsenal. In fact, I'd strongly advise junior programmers to stay away. You can do what you want, but I'm saying in terms of your own development, your own learning, stuff like that, I'm not sure how this would affect somebody's path on their career at that early stage. It really requires an experienced operator to sift through its suggestions and separate the useful code from the nonsense, because it can put out a lot of nonsense. You can't treat it like a magical code-making machine. At times it'll happily generate irrelevant, inaccurate, or absolutely bizarre responses. Copilot has saved me a lot of time with a lot of little projects that I've worked on lately, a lot of little personal things, just stuff that I probably wouldn't have had I would have been, I don't want to go and look at them, I'm lazy. This made it fun to actually write some tools that I needed. And, but one thing I found is that sometimes, every now and then, I'd get a little too trusting of it, and, I'd end up going down a rabbit hole. I spent more time than if I had just gone and looked it up. It doesn't happen too often, especially once you get a feel for what it's, where its boundaries are as a tool. But it's something to be aware of. So at the end of the day, Copilot and other AI-assisted tooling in general is kind of like the super suit from Greatest American Hero. And another $50 if you get that reference. So you are potentially making $100 on this talk. It has the capacity to do a lot of good, but the full extent of its powers are currently unknown. You can lose a lot of time, but worse, you can introduce subtle bugs. But the worst thing, and this is kind of like why I would push junior programmers away from it, is that it can introduce security holes. because the code that it's built upon is not vetted. I mean, as I understand it, if you're pulling from the entire corpus of GitHub, yeah, you're going to get the entire corpus of GitHub. You're going to get some expert stuff like Unreal Engine or whatever, but you're also going to get, some really crappy stuff. And it's important to note that, yes, it does generate chunks from existing projects, but it's not always one-to-one copy-paste kind of thing. It's like you saw with my API example. It was able to transform the existing code snippet into what I wanted, because it's smart like that. It's like, think about the ChatGPT examples. And unlike The Greatest American Hero, there's no UFO out there with a manual full of instructions for you to find and, suddenly be competent. It's not like that. It's chaos. But it's early days, and it's only going to get better. But even, what we have here right now, it's kind of brought back an element of fun for me as a programmer. Your mileage may vary. You may look at this and go, this is a toy. I don't want to deal with it. I got my own brains. Fuck off. That's fine. That's completely fine. And because I'm not doing this live, these are some questions you might have, and these are legit. How much does it cost? There's a 60-day trial, but it's $10 a month. I think it's worth it. I really do. There's the usual free tier for open source or educational use. Now here's the big one. If your code is under NDA, or I simply don't want my work to be fed back into the AI model, what's the risk? Well, while setting it up, it asks if you want to opt in and provide your code as just more data for the data set. You can opt out. I said no, and it didn't seem to affect Copilot's ability to understand the context within my code. And it's amazing because it'll actually take like the file name and understand your intentions of what you're trying to do. It did some really kind of surprising thinking ahead for me, and it knew exactly where I was going with certain things. But that didn't seem to be affected by this opting out. I couldn't find a clear analysis of the actual packets being sent back to GitHub. I will probably do an analysis of that myself. There are ways where it may not be sending data back, but there's ways to break down words into tokens that the data set understands, but humans don't understand. It gets crazy. So it's possible that you could use this on something that, I don't know. Point is, it's a question mark. And I would like to know the answer to it. And on the plus side, like I said before, there's open source clones that are in the works. So maybe you can run it locally. Maybe you could have a box in the back that's your AI box, and you're interrogating it from your own machine. Am I an AI? Remember that. That seemed so far-fetched at one point. Yeah, it's me. I'm a real person. I'm not a deep fake. Not yet. I'm working on it. So that's it. And I hope you all had a great time in Vegas. I wish I was there. I have several reasons I can't, but that's all right. Get drunk. Later.